everyone. Welcome to the first ever Cheshire Board of Education online meeting. Mr. Kuzinski, we're going to have a call for quorum.
Mr. Grippo? Mr. Grippo? Oh,
Here.
everybody's on.
Here.
Yep. Okay.
Here.
Ms. Hallen? Ms. Hallen? Ms. Ham?
Here.
Ms. Harrigan?
Here.
Mr. Martelli?
Hallen's
Here.
Mr. Perugini?
Here.
Mr. White?
Carol, I'm here also.
Sorry, I apologize. I was on mute.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Carol. We're going to actually stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I think Superintendent Solon has a flag for us to look at while we do this. Awesome. Stand for the pledge. Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of
States of America.
and to the
Over here.
republic for which it stands,
And
one
one
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
justice
justice for all.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll figure this out as we go on. I want to thank the board for joining us this evening. I know this is rather something new for us, but given the events and situation, we had to meet, just at least give an update to the public and have some discussion on the COVID-19 virus. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Before we begin, I think we all like to thank literally everyone in Cheshire Public Schools and in our great town for the incredible patience and support you've shown us over the last 2 weeks. To say this is an unprecedented event is an understatement. I acknowledge everyone involved for getting us through the last couple of weeks. Things have been upended, so to speak, with the virus outbreak. We got school closures. I know a lot of parents are working from home, and the uncertainty around all this. I think Cheshire Public Schools, our employees, our towns come together very, very nicely, and I want to acknowledge and thank you for that. And just a little background about this meeting tonight. Last week, Governor Lamont's executive order relaxes some of the freedom of information requirements. So it gives local governing bodies and boards some flexibility to meet electronically, whether we do it via video, as we're doing tonight, or conference call. So this is our first attempt at that. So we are making history. So for those of you joining us, you're infamous at this point. This is our first online meeting ever, and possibly more to come depending on how the situation unfolds. Our format this evening is a regular board meeting agenda format, which allows for public commentary and questions. And we're allowing the public to send in questions via email, same as we did last time, which is included on the agenda. That email address is CPSCovid19@cheshire.k12.ct.us. And we'll be monitoring those questions as they come in. With that being said, Mr. Superintendent Solon, we're turning over to you for your report.
Thank you very much, Chairman Perugini. And I would just certainly, first of all, I acknowledge and I appreciate the accolades you bestowed upon everybody in our school system. I just want to echo that. And, you know, I appreciate that all of us, all of the board, the full staff, community, our students in particular. I mean, it's not just a shift in education for us. It's an absolute change in lifestyle. So, you know, as you mentioned, you have parents that some are going to work, some are working from home. Our kids are kind of trapped and out of their routine. This is absolutely unprecedented, and it's taken an incredible amount of effort and patience to do what our entire community is doing. But again, I am so proud of the way that everybody has handled themselves, and you know, look forward to making the best of this difficult situation and hopefully turning this into a positive memory for our community in the way that we pulled together and worked through this collectively. And I appreciate all the board's efforts toward that end. So thank you guys as well. Just a few updates. As a matter of fact, this one I literally just got off the phone with our town manager, Mr. Kimball, before this meeting, and all town parks have been closed, effective 7 a.m. tomorrow, including the dog park, the playgrounds at our schools, the athletic fields, in an effort to limit people coming together and improve our social distancing. That decision's been made, so I ask that everybody watching please heed that request and stay away from the parks and the fields and maintain social distancing. The better we do that, the quicker we can get through this. The governor has made a decision to close all Connecticut schools through at least April 20th, were his words. So we are in this for the long haul. We've got another several weeks of remote learning, and thankfully our school system has prepared for that, and we feel like we're in a pretty good place to continue with remote learning. Now, that being said, April break is an issue that comes up, and I mentioned at our meeting a week ago this past Monday that we're retaining the April break kind of strategically as a holding place for the moment. And the reason we're doing that is really kind of twofold. One of the things we're looking at is collectively across Connecticut, what's the likelihood that the governor will continue to keep school closed for an even longer period? And the other is just to look at the emotional and physical health of our students, staff, and community. So if it turns out that we are having a lot of illness with staff and with students, the likelihood is greater that we would want to retain the April vacation to give people a time to kind of recuperate. If we seem to be holding up okay, and it looks like perhaps the remote learning will carry on even beyond April 20th, I think that what we would prefer to do is take days off the end of the year. If people can't go outside anyway, we'll maintain our routine. If it seems like the emotional health of our students and community is in a good place to do that, alternatively, we'll examine other options, like even just taking a few days off. So that decision we hope to have made by April 3rd, so next Friday, so that people can have a little bit more time to plan. Unfortunately, it's not like vacations are in order for that week, but we still want to try and give people a little bit of a heads up on what the overall schedule should look like. This also has impacted many of our major school events, things like plays and trips, and it's getting into this point where we're even looking at things like proms and potentially even our CHS graduation or other promotion ceremonies. So what we're in the process of doing now over the last week or so, we've been starting to look at these events, and is there a way to postpone them and still give our students the incredible opportunity to perform in these events or to attend their prom? These are lifetime memories that we really want to try and hold on to for our kids to the greatest extent possible. So, for example, with proms, we've been working with venues to find dates in June as an alternative. We have already had conversations about having an official graduation remotely on the last day of school, which would be June 18th at this point, barring April break change, and then having more of a ceremony in the summer if we have to, on a volunteer basis for students. And I think most students would want to participate in that, although once they've graduated, we can't force them to, but we certainly welcome their attendance and celebration with them. They deserve it. So we are trying to plan for some of these really important social, community, and educational events, and we're pushing those back as much as we can to still have them happen. All of our school field trips are canceled through April 20th. Unfortunately, Nature's Classroom starts up shortly thereafter, and that is, I would say, in pretty significant jeopardy. We have been working with Nature's Classroom, and we'll be communicating more out to our parents next week. A decision on the 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. That trip occurs the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but before Memorial Day weekend. We will also make a decision on that next week. We've been working with Nation's Classroom, the tour provider. They've been incredible with us. And so we're looking to make that decision next week. If things don't dramatically improve in the next week or so, unfortunately, it looks like many of those events will have to be canceled anyway. I want to remind everybody in the community who's watching that our website, we built a website specific to remote learning. So if you go on our homepage and click on the link for coronavirus right at the top of the page, you will see all of the communications that we've sent home. I've probably sent a communication to parents like 8 out of the last 10 days. I'm trying not to be overwhelming, but keeping people kind of what's on tap for tomorrow kind of thing. Additionally, you can link there and find all sorts of information about technical glitches, how to support your child and your family's emotional health through this process, technology, if you have a question about technology. One of the questions we got through CPS COVID-19 was, can my elementary school student still acquire a Chromebook? Yes, if you go on to that technology tab on the coronavirus page, you just simply fill out a form and somebody will be in touch with you. We even do house calls. We do deliveries on those. So if there is a need, please reach out that website for technology, education, and food services. I know Vin will talk a lot more about food services as we move on. I also want to encourage you, if you haven't already, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and we provide regular updates there, as well as some cool things that are going on around town. For example, over at Norton the other day, some students had written in chalk on the driveway, "We miss our teachers," and that was just really awesome, and it meant a lot for our staff, and I tweeted that out, as did our official page. So follow that and you can see some neat stuff. Remote learning, as I think most people would imagine, has been our I don't want to say only priority, because we are looking at other things like health and food service and things like that, but it has been a significant priority. We have 4,200 students learning from home now, so everything else has kind of gone by the wayside, unfortunately, but we have poured a lot of energy into trying to make sure that our students have a really positive experience and their families feel like this is a worthwhile time for them. And I know that we solicited our parents through a survey yesterday, and I want to just take we had more than 1,400 responses already in about a 24-hour period, which is incredible. And I know Marlene will talk more about that, but I just want to thank everybody for that. And that helps us focus on, like I said, that priority of making sure that we're providing a great remote learning experience for our families, and particularly our students, obviously. I also want to thank the town and Chespercott. They've been tremendous partners for us. We speak regularly. So for example, today, Mr. Massiano, myself, town manager, the fire chief, Maura Esposito from Chespercott, others were on a conference call. And what we're planning for is what if scenarios. And so we all, you may not see things at the surface level, but we're all working together to make sure that if the town needed school facilities, if the town needed school resources, that we would be there to support the town as they've been there to support us through all of this. So, that's a pretty comprehensive overview there of just kind of a generic entry point. I know Ms. Solano will be going into a lot of the remote instruction stuff, and Mr. Massiano will be covering a lot of our facilities and financial implications and a lot of other items. But I just want to pause here to see if members of the board have any questions for me to this point.
Thank you, Jeff. That being said, do we have any members with questions? Tim. He's the first to the buzzer.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Thanks for the update, Jeff. I appreciate it. And I, again, applaud you on the work you've been doing for the last few weeks. I think it's been fantastic. I'm speaking as a dad right now with my daughter and what I've seen and what's happening. So thank you for that. Let me see. With regard to, you mentioned the April vacation before, and I'm wondering about, you were talking about absences. I'm just curious, do you happen to know off the top of your head, like what is a typical number of absences that you would have for teachers and, throughout the year in April, or students? Like what's the baseline number you have that's normal? And then anything above that would be abnormal. I'm just curious.
Sure. Thanks. It's great to see your daughter in the background too. And we miss seeing kids around all the time. But, I think it would be a little bit misleading to look at what would be a typical number of absences because everybody's working from home. So, I may call out under certain circumstances because I don't want to get in and maybe, get other students sick or whatever, but I may be okay to work from home. So this is kind of uncharted water for us, and we'll have to maintain strong communication with our teachers. And that's why we have our nurses working right now as well, so that they can track, okay, who's been, quote, symptomatic, and how long have they been symptomatic, and what do we have to track for them to support them, or who's going to be out because of something not related at all to COVID or something. I broke my ankle in the backyard or something. Then I could probably teach online, but not if I broke my wrist, So these are really unique circumstances that we're trying to work through, but we are going to monitor that. And right now, knock on wood, we've been pretty good. And all of our staff have been engaged and nobody's been missing time really.
Okay. Thank you. Just two more points, I think. Under the topic of COVID, as I mentioned to you, Jeff, just before the meeting, I probably I'm hoping for this weekend to call a meeting of the personnel committee. We don't know what could happen. People could become incapacitated, including you, the superintendent, principals, things like that, all at once. And so I'm hoping to just have a meeting with a general discussion without getting into too many details, but a general discussion of succession planning for everyone, all your staff, and then also more specifically you. Who would it be? Who would you recommend to the board? So that's just a comment for people to be aware that it is on our radar that we need to have that discussion in light of the circumstances. And then the last question I have, recognizing that the number one issue right now is public health. At the same time, I also, think about the economy, and we want things to go well and people to have jobs and stuff. And so I'm just curious, do you have any sense at this point when you might be doing some day-to-day work aside from specifically all the COVID related stuff? And I can give you a specific example I could give you that went through my mind. It won't surprise you, is like solar. And I don't want to, that's not my specific point right now, but I do want other things to continue. I don't want everything to just, stop. And to the extent that we can have things continue, that's what I'm just wondering about from your perspective. Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel right now?
To be frank, not right now. The way that that's such a dynamic situation at the moment that it doesn't seem like we can string 3 days together without something new showing up, whether it's planning for emergency services or enhancing our remote learning. As well as I think that's gone, we're still really trying to improve it for our students. but I would hope that, over the next couple of weeks, we will start to see the light that you're talking about and start to pay a little bit more attention to something beyond this, if this is going to be the new normal.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Faith raised her hand next. So Faith, you have the mic.
Hey all, and Jeff and team, again, congratulations on all that you're doing. I cannot thank you enough for your efforts. Just curious, we know Cheshire's testing numbers. I think we have one. I haven't read today's numbers. But without violating HIPAA laws, do you have any reports on any within our school community who have tested positive for the virus that you've heard of?
I know that there are 4 folks, it seems, preliminarily in Cheshire testing positive. Now, if they're in our community, period. So at this point, I had this conversation with Maura yesterday that because we've been out of school at this point, as long as we have been, chances are that to a very high probability that if somebody ends up with the COVID virus, that they will have contracted it after they were out of school. So I'm not concerned about community spread in our school community unless people are gathering outside of school at this point.
If I could have just one follow-up, it's totally different direction. You and I have talked about the graduation, the play, and you mention it, and I'm so glad that we recognize we may have to do spread into the summer months. I'm hoping that this is all done. It just, once again, just re-emphasize the idea that this will then become a huge community event. And so please involve us, all of us, because we want to see these kids have their ceremonies and perform that play and have that prom. So I'm just saying we're here and we're ready to help.
Faith, I know our students in particular really appreciate that support. I'm sure our whole community does, but I receive regular emails from our students, hopeful that these things will transpire. And unfortunately, school, whether we're in or out, is really out of my hands at this point. But we definitely want to see that move forward, and we'll definitely solicit your support. Hopefully, we'll be able to do that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Faith. Andrew, did you have a question? Or you're just commenting?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks. So Jeff, thanks for the update. I know Ms. Solano is going to talk about the remote learning aspect of this in a second. I just want to, you mentioned April break. I'm glad that it's not being changed at this point. I do think the kids could use a break from the computers. I know my 2 daughters have been literally in their rooms for most of the day, every day, engaged with the exercise and so forth. We're trying to work in breaks and break up the monotony of that. So I think by the time April break comes around, it'll be welcome, even though we can't really venture far away. I just think being away from technology for a few days is key. And the other thing I want to add is on other boards, I do get notifications, and there's a lot of discussion going on between Board of Ed chairs in the district, I'm sure as you're aware of. There seems to be a 50-50 split so far, as I'm seeing on the commentary, where it seems like half the school districts have adjusted their April break, either reduced it to a long weekend, and the other half have kept it unchanged. And I think the districts that got a later start than we did with online learning had to make that change with April break because they're already going to run into the end of June. So I bring it up because not because we're any better off in a school district, but I do want to say kudos to you and your team for getting the ball rolling so quickly with remote learning. I think that gave us a little bit of a head start, especially knowing early on that there might be more closures. So good call there and good call on the break. I just want to thank you for putting the kids social needs first.
Thanks, son.
Any other questions from the board before we turn over to Ms. Solano? Seeing as there's none, Marlene, you have the mic.
Hello, everyone. First, I really want to say to the parents, because we've always felt that our parents were partners with us in students' education. I think probably parents more than anyone would say that they really feel like partners now with children being home every day. So we're really grateful for parents as partners in this. We know that people are working from home and that we've got people who work in the medical field, and they have their kids home with them while they're trying to do all these things. And we really, really appreciate feedback and their support as we go down this journey into remote learning. So thank you very much. I also just that, really give some credit to the fantastic team that I've been lucky to work with. Kevin Hanlon as our K-8 curriculum coordinator, Tom Lewalk and Scott Conway, who are our tech integration specialists, have been building this right along with us. Our teacher leaders in the Rams, and then our technology manager, Mike Papa and B. Jacobs, in getting all the Chromebooks into the hands of every student who needs one. So with regard to remote instruction, wanted to just review the tools that we're using. Our platform for this is Google Classroom, and then we're using Google Meet, which we're all on tonight as part of the board. So teachers are able to have this tool at their disposal to use with students, either individually or in smaller groups. It gets a little more tricky when you have many students at a time. They're also able to use something called Screencastify, which records video, short snippets of videos that they can then push out to their students via Google Classroom. And then, of course, School Messenger, which probably will look too different to parents, but it means that you're getting emails, and it enables us to do large batches of emails at once. So that's sort of the foundation that this lays on. As far as access to devices, right now we have 2,400 students with one-to-one devices that are our Cheshire Public Schools Chromebooks, and our tech integration specialists in our tech department, we are supporting those students and 600 staff members with this remote technology. We have a tech support webpage set up for both parents and students. So if there's anyone out there who's having difficulty with a Chromebook, you can go right to the tech support page and enter a maintenance ticket, and we can swap your Chromebook out, we can walk you through things. There's also some videos available to parents and students on how to use some of those tools. I just want to reiterate what Jeff said earlier about that continuity of education page. Have a plethora of support materials out there for parents, including some tip sheets on what parents can do at K3 level, at the 4-8 level, and then at the 9-12 level. So every parent who was loaned a device also was given a phone number. If that device isn't working, we have a hotline set up where they can call in to a phone number that we are checking regularly here at school. As far as intervention, we are working with we're providing devices to all of our intervention staff, which is our literacy support tutors, our kindergarten IAs, our first grade IAs, our special education IAs also. We want to be able to help students in this remote learning environment to the greatest extent possible. And so we have our school counselors and school psychologists and our speech and language therapists, OT and PT, reaching out to parents and students either via email or Google Meet or old-fashioned phone call to see how we can best support. And those staff members are also in communication with classroom teachers to be able to figure out which students may be struggling and need extra support during this time. Per our state guidance, upon our return to school, we would reconvene any PT meetings that would need to happen, but the state has asked us to hold off on those. We were doing those in those first couple of days when things changed fast and we got some new guidance on that. Of course, we're always, available for any kind of communication outside of the PPT. When we get back to school, those PPT meetings will reconvene, and we'll identify any regression that students have had, and we'll make a plan to support them. So those are some of the information about remote learning in a nutshell. I really want to say again, thank you to the parents for all the feedback they provided us. Up until right before this meeting, we had 1,419 responses to our survey. And while we're not finished collating and disaggregating all of that data, it really is looking very positive. We asked questions about whether or not parents feel that they're getting the right amount of communication from teachers. And it's interesting, K3, we had 89% of parents say they were getting just the right communication, with 5% saying too much and 6% saying too little. So I think those are pretty good numbers. When we asked about the right amount of work on computer, we had roughly 75% 89% tell us that it was the right amount, and then the split between too much and too little. So we are targeting that majority, that most people are feeling like the amount and the amount of work and the amount of time on a computer and the amount of remote learning activities we're giving kids are meeting students' needs. It's gonna go a little farther down. We also queried our K-3 parents specifically with a couple of questions, because as you know, we did not deploy Chromebooks in K-3. We sent home learning toolkits with whiteboards and manipulatives and books and some lessons. And so we were asking them, what is their families, do their have the ability to have their child view some instructional resources on either a computer or an Xbox or a smart TV or a cell phone or an iPad? And 94% said, yes, we have that capability. And 94% also said they had the capability to have a child complete 10 to 20 minutes of work on a device, so could start giving them some more online instruction type work today. So it was that's a thing to hear, because we needed that information in order to make some changes moving ahead. In grades 4 through 8, 80% of parents said communication was just right. 74% said the amount of time on the computer was right, and 72% said the work was just right. And again, in most of those, too much and too little, they kind of balanced each other out. If at 9 through 12, similar positive results. Of course, when you're getting into that school, there's less parent communication typically. So because the students are already up and running on Google Classroom. So that's an area where we might be looking to have some additional parent communication going home, which I think would certainly be helpful. Also, the amount of work, 66% said just right, 13% said too little, 20% said too much. So we're going to disaggregate that a little bit more, find out, is this by grade level? And it'll, I think, help us to just continue to improve upon this process. This won't be the last survey that we do. We intend to survey our students with some of these same questions, and to survey our teachers on a couple of other things. And this won't be the last time we survey parents either. If we're looking at this across the long haul, we're going to need continued feedback from our parents out there. Next is the state testing update. And we received word, we've gotten a waiver, and the Smarter Balanced and the Next Generation Science standards will not be required this year. Well, the SAT, we are going to be working with the College Board and looking at your dates that might be available for students who need to take that. And our advanced placement classes, much of testing, or at least one of those tests, will actually become an at-home test. They have modified that so that part of that test will be taken at home. The last part of my report is just to let you know about all the staff that we have working remotely. We have, I've got daily meetings with our tech integration specialists, both in the morning and at the day. We have bi-weekly technology meetings to make sure that we're getting those devices into the hands of those who need them, and supporting both teachers and students in any of the tools that we're using. We've got daily teacher meetings taking place with the RAM so that we can continue to plan for instruction for the next few weeks. And we've been meeting daily with our administrative team too. So needless to say, everyone has gotten very used to using Google Meet today, where a week or two ago, we didn't have that many experts. I'd say we have a whole lot more now. So that's my report. For you to take any questions.
Thank you, Marlene. Does the board have any questions? Go ahead, Adam.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Okay, excellent. Ms. Solano, I'll begin with making a comment to all of the parents out there. As a parent who's been helping the homeschool effort here, I'm fortunate enough to have a partner to also split the duties. But I guess just wondering, is there any support for the single parent, or anything like that, where what if a parent needs to work, if they're perhaps a first responder or anything? Is there any support for the child that the school system can provide, or is that something sort of out of our realm? And I have several other questions after that. So Tony, I don't know if you want to, put me back in the queue or whatever. Thanks.
So Adam, that's a really good question. And I would say for any parents in that situation, flexibility is the middle name here. So communicate with the teacher. We are happy if the child is doing that work at night, if they're doing it on Saturday or Sunday. That's part of the blessing of remote learning. It's not that you have to do reading from 8 to 9 every day or from 10 to 12. It's really flexible. And the assignments are, we're working to make sure that those assignments in a way are given time and multiple days to complete them. We want to take that pressure off parents, and we want to take that pressure off kids. This is going to be a much more fluid situation than you're handing your paper at X time. So the key to that is going to be the communication between the teacher, the parent, and the student.
Thanks, Marlene. Adam, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I guess that I have friends throughout the United States, and I've been touting our system as one of the first who sort of, I congratulate you. It seemed like it was about 4 days you guys were running something like that. I guess my question is, because it seemed like a lot of other states are sort of in the opposite direction. I just wanted to reiterate, does all of the work that the children are doing, does it actually count? Because there are some states where their work is where they're just having children do work so that they can, I guess, stay educated, but it's not actually counting towards anything. And it seemed like that's what we're doing here, is that everything that the children are doing, it actually means something, and that the teachers are keeping track of what the children are doing, and that it actually is they're working towards their education, so that no one has to repeat for next year, or no one has to make that type of decision.
So I would like to say that it all counts in the big scheme of things. And I know that, and Jeff would probably add to this, that across the state, superintendents are getting together to really talk about grading and to make some recommendations to the commissioner. But we are practicing some of the grading policies that are in place. But again, with uber flexibility, and knowing that a lot of what was in those learning toolkits was, some of it was review. We want to make sure that we get those basic skills down and they're strong, but also know that when kids come back, whenever we come back, we'll be assessing them. And as a district, we're going to have to monitor and adjust our instructional path to make sure that we get the kids to where they need to be, because it's a huge disruption.
And if you want to ask another one, then I'll turn over to Catherine and we can jump back to you. No, go ahead, one more. You had several.
Oh, no, I'm all set. Thank you. I'll wait.
Okay. Thanks, Adam. Catherine, you're up.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chair. It's really more of a comment than a question that I had when you were speaking, Marlene, about the, parents, the partnership between the parents and the children, because they're both home, the parents are working from home or whatever. It just struck me that this may be a bit of a silver lining, that this is an opportunity that I don't think many parents get to experience, which is really seeing what their kids are doing, what the curriculum looks like. It's a view of their children's educational experience that I don't think many people have gotten the benefit of. I know I didn't. So I think that's just fascinating. And obviously it's created a very optimistic view from parents because of the results of the survey that you're starting to see, that parents are really feeling engaged, and that the communication is where it needs to be, and the amount of work generally. It just sounds like it's really been a very positive, to the extent it can be, experience so far. And so, but I was just struck by that thought. I would have loved to have been at home with my child, really getting engaged in their learning. So that's all. Thanks.
If I could respond to that, one of our questions was, what type of support do you need to support your child at home? And we had 459 parents say time management. 456 said understanding curriculum content. And so I want to reassure parents that they do not need to be the curricular content experts, that we will take that on and we will help with that. But we're also happy to explain things, because if your child comes home and is when your child is home and is frustrated with what they're doing, and you're looking at that saying, well, I don't remember what 8th grade, what that topic was in math or science, that's okay. You don't have to explain it and understand it. You need to help them advocate for themselves and say, well, let's sit down and send your teacher an email and say that, you need help understanding that. I think it's a great time for parents to help their child build those independence and self-advocacy skills. So it certainly is unique.
Catherine, that was a great observation. It was so obvious. I didn't even notice it. My wife and I being home, and our kids working, in their rooms upstairs. We do check in periodically. So I think, Marlene, maybe one of the reasons you get time management on curriculum content is probably because parents like myself feel that the kids know a little bit more about the subject than we used to back in the day. So maybe we're trying to get a leg up on what they're learning, so we don't seem too far behind in the topic. But I will say it is a good storyline for, as a parent, we do get to experience a little bit more what they're experiencing, and to get a chance to vent and talk more. And so we'll take advantage of it while we can. I know it's easier for some families, not for others, that are sharing, maybe 2 computers amongst 4 people. I know that happens in some households. But that's a great observation. I believe Andrew's next, then Anne, and then Adam again. So Andrew, you're up.
Thank you. I just want to congratulate Marlene, Vin, and Jeff, and all the parents, everyone out there. We've been having our lunch waves together here in the kitchen. And today I was lucky enough to be allowed on a 4-way group chat with 4 of my daughter's friends, so 5 total. And overwhelmingly, they are enjoying this. They feel supported. I'm sure there's people out there who might be not having as great of experience as they have. But one thing that I witnessed on day 1, my daughter's a 7th grader at Dodd, is they encourage the kids to get up, do a quick workout, and then shower and get ready as if they were getting ready for school. And she has done that every day. So I work from home primarily anyway. So I've been kind of following in that routine as well. So again, I just want to say that I know it's not perfect. I think that all of our lives are kind of changed, but I think we're doing a great job. And I was on a conference call today on a project, and there were several people whose kids are just starting to get into the remote learning next week. And so I definitely have bragging rights to say that we had been doing it for over a week and a day today. So I just want to say thanks to everybody out there.
Thanks, Andrew. Ann, you're up. Ann, if you're speaking, your mic is muted.
I just unmuted.
Ah,
Thank you, and thanks, Marlene, for that report. Very eye-opening. I just wanted to add that your Cheshire Public Schools is not alone with the call for more time management skills, because certainly many of our students at the college level, that is what they are calling out for, especially in their first year in college as well. And it's really a big thing about going to remote learning is you are responsible for getting yourself into the virtual classroom, into the online activities, and there's just the lack of having that person standing over you with eyes on you. It makes a big difference, but it's remarkable what Cheshire Public Schools has been able to do. And so congratulations, Jeff, Vin, Marlene, and all the principals and everybody that's been working so hard in this effort. It's a lot. You guys are doing a great job, and I just want to say thank you.
thank you, Ann. If there's no other questions, oh wait, I think I have one more. Hang on. I know Adam's next. Adam and then Tim. Adam, you're up.
Thank you. Yeah, so I just wanted to comment firstly that my son's in third grade, and I was impressed by, it really gives a great sort of depth to the report card. Because around when we online learning is when the report card for, I believe, the second term came out, and happy to say that he did very well. But to know that how prepared he was with the classroom instruction, how his teacher had him really know a lot of the materials, at least in this first week, where at least he seemed to have a depth of knowledge to be able to carry himself through this first week of this very difficult transition, and how he already knew how to use the I guess there were a couple of assignments that were on the Chromebook, how he knew how to use the Google Classroom already. And that was a learning curve for me. I was like, wow, I didn't know you knew how to use all this stuff. This is really great. And so, and on top of that, my wife and I had a video conference with his teacher today. And he was able to check in, and we were able to ask questions. It was a great, 15 minutes of, it was still face-to-face conversation. And it was, really great to see how we're able to use all this technology so quickly. And that's a testament to you, Marlene, and to your staff, that, we were really able to get up and running, and that you guys really had a lot of this sort of in the hopper already, I guess. And it's really great to see how it's been put to great use. So I guess my question is, and I sort of asked his teacher today, and so that's why I asked you now, is so I know that you guys had sort of prepared, a 2-week curriculum. When do you think that parents can see that I guess addendum to that? I'm assuming you're in preparation now that we're going to have to go out through, I guess, April 20 at the very least. Do you have a timeline as to how those things are going to roll out, and what exactly parents should expect for that continuing education?
Yes, so basically the day that the kids went home with all of that material, we were already busy trying to build what we knew was probably going to be more than 2 weeks. So that is what our teacher leaders and Kevin Hanlon and the team, that's what we're engaged in and what we've been digging up our sleeves into since that Friday that we sent everyone home with those materials. And we'll be communicating too how we're going to get these materials out to everyone. And so we have a good team to help prepare those. And I don't want to guarantee that they're going to be delivered, but they will be in parents' hands before you need to put them in front of your child.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Tim, you had a question.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, I'm not sure what people can see on TV. I actually had to step away for just a couple minutes because my 4-year-old son kind of needed to step away too. I say that just because I may have missed a comment. So Tony, feel free to cut me off if you already discussed this briefly. And also it's just our world that we're living with. Just wondering, trying to think, I lost my train of thought for a second. With regard to this is really a lot for parents. One parent contacted me in town today, this week, and mentioned that one high school class was well structured, and the teacher would have all the students log in at a certain time. And Marlene, I know you mentioned this briefly about logging in and having the structure. And the parent said that was great, and I agree. However, at the same time, some teachers probably have little kids like I'm dealing with, and daycare has disappeared. So you cannot simply send your 4-year-old to daycare. And so this is really just a request on the part of parents to recognize the situation in which some teachers are finding themselves, and to just try to take that into consideration. They may not, some teachers may not actually be able to have that 45 minutes if their kid is coming after them, Anyway, that's really it, just to be understanding of everyone involved in this. And I do believe that our teachers, by and large, are trying to do a really good job, and I think they are doing a good job, but the circumstances are just difficult. Thanks, Tony.
No, Tim, it's a great point. I just automatically assume when we say we thank the parents that we realize teachers are parents. Some teachers are parents too. So yeah, I know it's tough for someone, especially if we have single parent households. It's a juggling act. Marlene, I think thank you for a great update. I know you in particular, Mr. Solon and Kevin, and a lot of folks have been working almost around the clock every day on a number of things. I still picture you in Jeff's office last week, late at working through details. I'm sure you're doing the same thing at home. So thank you for you and your team's help on this. And for the audience, as I was listening to everybody's comments, it may sound like we're bragging. We're not bragging. I think if people tune in, they hear us thinking this and positivity. It's just that there's been a lot of positivity around this. By no means are we perfect, but I think it is a pretty huge feat for Cheshire Public Schools to get this up and running quickly and with a high degree of quality, and hopefully we'll keep the momentum. So I do want to just acknowledge everyone's hard work. One quick thing, I was probably one of the less than 5% parents that said my kids had too much homework at the high school. Teachers have reached out to us, and in fact, I got an email from daughter's history teacher yesterday is checking in. So they are doing outreach. In fact, my younger daughter, her messaging wasn't working on her phone for a good part of the week. So her book club wasn't able to reach her. Teacher was concerned and actually contacted us to make sure everyone's okay. So they're looking out for everybody, and I appreciate that care that they're showing us. Just one idea that I got from a parent the other day. I shared this with Jeff yesterday, but one parent said it's going well, but it seems that at least the high school, maybe in some classes, kids can use more interactions directly with the teachers. And when Marlene talked about, it's kind of difficult to do when you have 20 to 24 tiles of students on Google Meet at one time. I can see the challenge in trying to have that happen on a one call. Just maybe possible to schedule some one-on-one time with each student during the week, maybe 20 minutes or 25 minutes, just to have FaceTime with the teacher. I think even for the younger grades, I think some of the kids do miss the direct contact they have with the teachers. And I'm not sure how much time they can dedicate to doing that, but it might go a long way. And this parent mentioned that if it's a technology problem, that he has a friend that works at Echo 360 that's offer up the service for free for educators as a possible option. So I think he has an email on that. But other than that, like what everyone else said, is we are getting a lot of feedback, and a lot of good ideas. So keep up the great work. Again, thank you to you and your team, and we'll see how this progresses going forward. Marlene, I think that's the end of your update, correct?
Yes, I just want to thank you all for your comments and let you know that this is not perfect. This is not what we all want. We are going to make mistakes along the way. There's no doubt we're doing something this big and this vast, but having your support and having so many positive things said by the community, really very much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you, Marlene. I think up next we have an update report from Mr. Massiana.
Thank you, Mr. Perugini. Good evening, everyone. So I'd like to start with a little bit of an explanation. I know the board members know that we have a school security and safety plan that covers many things. It's a large document. One of the sections in the school security and safety plan did cover response to large-scale outbreaks. However, I will tell you that this is not what we were expecting to see this year. So, the one thing, and I'm only going to try and thank the staff and the managers once, but, the staff here in the schools, certainly the teachers and the administrators, our custodians, our IAs, our nurses, all our managers, they've been amazing. Everybody has responded extremely well. And I think that's helped us keep things on an even keel, because clearly the school system is not shut down by any stretch of the imagination. All we did was took what we were doing inside our buildings and pulled them outside of our buildings. And so we're doing everything remotely. So with that said, the first item on the agenda would be an update on school breakfast and lunch, which is a grab and go program that we're doing out of Dodd Middle School. We've never done this before in Cheshire. Many school districts do offer a summer lunch program. We've never done it. So we had to ramp it up pretty quickly, and it's going very well. So I do want to spend a couple minutes to explain how this works. We had to get a waiver from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to offer this program. And so we're serving fully compliant USDA reimbursable breakfast and lunch. We're serving and distributing food 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Monday, Wednesday, we're distributing breakfast and lunch for 2 days. Fridays, we're distributing breakfast and lunch for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So this is, tomorrow will be our 5th full distribution day. And just to put a little perspective around what we've done, by tomorrow we will have served 16,222 meals using this grab and go update. And there's plenty of details beneath that shows you day by day how many meals that we're serving per car. But it is quite an accomplishment to be able to put that out, and it's been pretty flawless. We've even figured out how to reduce the wait times as people pick up their meals throughout the day. Breakfast is very structured under the USDA. So breakfast includes an 8-ounce milk, a fruit such as apple slices, fruit juice, and a 2-ounce whole grain. Lunch is an 8-ounce milk, an entree such as a turkey and cheese sandwich, dragon juice, which is also known as vegetable juice, and a fruit such as an orange. So when we're talking about breakfast and lunch, it's it's very, very structured. It's packaged, and it is reimbursable under the USDA. So for every breakfast we serve, we're reimbursed $1.84. Every lunch is $3.41. That is intended to cover cost of food, cost of supply, and our labor. Whether or not it will cover us fully is to be determined. We haven't gone through those numbers, but I think it's important for the board and the community to understand that is reimbursable. So it's not out of pocket from the operating budget. Next week, we are starting to offer lunch items that can be heated at home, and this is an announcement, such as shamrock shamrock-shaped chicken nuggets and corn hot dog nuggets. So, those lunches will be packaged and people, community members can heat them up at home. This is available for all children 18 and under, not just students of the Cheshire Public Schools. We do want to make a couple of acknowledgements. First, Madeline Dyker, who is our food service manager, she has been leading the effort, and I wanted to share some of her thoughts. She said the teamwork has been amazing. The staff from the other kitchens, so that's our food service staff that work at Doolittle or Norton or at the high school, they don't get to work together, but under these conditions, they are working together. And she said that this work at DOT has brought the entire team much closer together. So she was really pleased about that. Custodians and IAs have been terrific. The nurses from our nursing program are there daily. They're doing safety infection control. They're taking the staff's temperature at the beginning of the workday and at the end of the workday. They're also helping to make sure that we're distancing and doing everything that they need to do from a nursing perspective. And when they're not doing that, they've actually been helping to prepare the food packages. So again, incredible team effort. And also officers, our SROs, Dave Mallier and Gretchen Ovensny have been there with us inside the prep area, as well as helping direct traffic. So it's been going great. We want to thank Doug and Andrew Wade of Wade's Dairy. We don't have enough area to store all the milk. So what Wade's is doing is they're delivering milk in a truck, and they're leaving us the truck with the refrigeration unit on so we can keep the milk cold. So, we want to thank Wade's, and Wade's is our milk contractor. Also, Jerry Nappy and Bazzuto's, because they lent us a trailer, like you see on an 18-wheeler, and that's where we keep the refrigerated meals that are prepped for the following day. So again, if we didn't have that trailer, we could not store all the food that's been prepped to be served. So there's a big thank you for them. And then we want to also thank Jim from Cheshire Pizza and Ale. He's provided free lunch to the food prep team this past Tuesday. So a lot of community effort, a lot of staff effort to make this happen. We did have some excess milk, and we were able to actually donate that to the Cheshire Food Pantry this week. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is that bus drivers, these are the Board of Ed bus drivers, are delivering food to medically fragile or disabled children, families that need to get their food delivered if they're ill or if they're under quarantine for COVID. We don't have any of those yet, but we will make those deliveries of the lunches and breakfast to people's homes, and all community member has to do is contact either their school or the food and nutrition office. So that's the update on breakfast and lunch. Again, probably the biggest add-on thing we're doing. We're certainly supporting all the remote work, but this was an add-on for us. And I can pause there, Mr. Perugini, if you'd like, if there's any questions on that.
Yeah, you need to come up for air for a couple of seconds. And so, in all seriousness, Vincent, thank you for that update on the food service operation. And we do have some questions. Ann, you're first.
Thank
It wasn't
you.
Ann. It was it Ann, or did I see
Yeah.
Adam?
Yep. I'm ready.
Ann first, then Adam. Sorry.
Hi, Vin. Thanks for the update. I actually have talked with a parent or two about the food process, and just wondering, you make it sound as if we're not taking any kind of a hit to our operating budget by giving out the food, and I'm just wondering why that is so. I mean, I think it's the responses that I'm hearing is this is great that we're doing this, but we're offering it to everybody and their siblings even, right? And so how is this all being subsidized by the National Agriculture Department?
Well, the shorter answer is yes. the reimbursement that we get of $1.84 for breakfast and $3.41 per lunch applies to each meal that we distribute. So, that's why we had to get the waiver from the USDA, which we did apply for and receive, and that authorized the payment under the program. Now, whether or not the reimbursement is going to cover all our costs, this is what I was saying. We won't know that until the end. So, but it definitely helps us to provide this program. We won't profit from it, but
No, I wasn't concerned about profiting.
yeah.
Thanks, Vin. You explained it when you said, I had forgotten that we put in for that waiver.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
it's the same waiver that school districts use for the summer, breakfast and lunch programs that
right.
so there is reimbursement that's provided. The only thing that we don't know is the reimbursement typically comes from the USDA through the state. We're paid monthly. Under the scenario that we're operating under, we're not sure, and the state's not sure if the payment is going to continue to come through that same mechanism, or if it's going to be reimbursed through FEMA, as part of the emergency declaration. But either way, there'll be a reimbursement. The only thing that would be different if it's through FEMA is we're going to wait longer to get that reimbursement. So we may have to cover some of that out of our operating budget, but it's too early to know for sure.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question, and I think it answers the public questions as well, at least the ones I've been hearing. Thank you very much. I knew you had it under control. I just wanted a little explanation.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ann. Adam, you're up, and then Faith.
Thank you, Tony. Hi, Vin. So my first question is, do you track who is coming in for the meal at all? Like, is it all just, do we know if it's all students? Do we know if it's people who, children who don't attend Cheshire Public Schools? And then to piggyback on that, is there a possibility that if you were tracking that, I know, a lot of kids have their lunch accounts that they would use for hot lunch and stuff. Would there be a possibility where the money from their accounts could be used if they're coming for a meal in this fashion?
Great question. So we are not tracking who's receiving the meals. Parents can go online, and we ask them to go online to just let us know that they're reserving a meal or multiple meals. But we are not using any of the students' school lunch money. We're not required to under this program. In fact, that the program is intended, not to follow that process because there is the reimbursement through the USDA. So really, the reason that we are taking names is just so that we know how many meals to prepare, which, we're getting it down to a science pretty much. There are actually more meal reservations than we distribute. So we've been able to keep up with demand. We've never run out of meals to hand out so far.
Can I ask an unrelated question, or you want to put me back in queue?
Oh, you're on a roll. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So it's sort of an unrelated matter. Whenever we discuss the finance at our normal business meetings, we're always talking about, our outplacement costs. And so I'm guessing that since everyone's sort of in lockdown, does that cost go away, or do those students still? How do we manage those students in a situation like this?
So the costs don't go away. Those outplacement centers are providing remote services. So the question will be, if there will be a discount off the normal billing because they are not providing services in the center. And I don't have all the details. Obviously, Tracy Hussey would be able to give us more of the details on that. I did prepare a pro forma of what the COVID savings or increased expenses might be, and what I assumed on the outplacement cost is that, for the next month or so, they'd be reduced about 15%, but that's just an estimate based on some of the early things that we're hearing. But it doesn't go to zero.
Thank you.
Faith, you're up.
Thanks. And Vin, to echo what we've said to Marlene and Jeff, I do applaud you with how you've organized this whole feeding of the town, essentially. Congratulations to you for that. I do have basically a mess of questions. I hope they're pretty easy. You have applied for the waiver. How long is that going to be? And will you need to apply for an extension at all?
No, this is granted for this COVID period. So
Okay.
as long as we need to keep serving lunches, the waiver applies.
Okay. And are you seeing any, granted, we're only what, 1 day, or 1 week and a day into it. Are you seeing any trends in demand, either rising, falling, holding stable?
So they're increasing. The number of, and I'll go by number of cars first. So day one, which was last Wednesday, we had 185 cars, then 219, 240, 284 on Wednesday. And so tomorrow we're expecting about 300. If I look at the total number of children served, it started at 325, went up to 597, 749, 811 Wednesday, and we're estimating 850 for tomorrow. So it's been increasing, not dramatically, but it has increased. So at some point we will level off. And again, I think the important thing for us is that we've been able to, keep up with the demand without, telling anybody, sorry, we're not able to provide any food. So far,
Okay. Okay, Tony, do you mind if I ask a couple more? Or do you want me to get back in the queue?
No, go ahead, and then we'll have Tim after when you're done.
Okay. And you said real fast, your supply of lunches is exceeding demand. What are you doing with those excess lunches if you have them? Are you distributing to, besides the food bank, you've got prepared lunches, are they going anywhere?
No, I mean, the excess that we've had, we've been able to keep refrigerated and use it on the next distribution day. I mean, we're distributing every other day. So, at most the prep food is prepared 1 day before.
Okay. And then for school lunch money, the regular school lunch money, are you reimbursing families for unused school lunch money?
Well, that money sits in their account until the end of the school year.
Okay.
And it will roll over to the next year. If they have students that won't, like high schoolers at 12th grade, if they graduate, they can get that money refunded or they can donate it. So right now, we don't have to do anything. That money sits in the student activity account, in the food service student activity account.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Faith. Tim, you're up.
No, I'm good, Tony. Sorry, I just put it. Don't worry about me, man.
Okay, I see your latest text, no problem.
Sorry.
Any other questions before we have Vin continue on? Seeing as there is none, just to remind the public, if there is anybody watching this live on YouTube, the public question and commentary is coming right up after Vincent's update. So any questions you have, we'll be checking that email account shortly. Thank you. Vin, go ahead.
Okay, the next series of updates will be much briefer, I promise. The next item we have is human resources, staffing, and remote work. Just a couple of updates. First of all, from an employee point of view, I do want to say from the HR perspective, we do have a couple of employees who can't report to work because they have childcare, and they also may not be able to do remote work. So we are obviously working to assist them if they have vacation days or personal days. Employees are allowed to take those. We're excusing those employees. And to the extent there's some government programs that are made available, we'll certainly take advantage of those as well. But so far, it really has been a handful of employees, and we owe it to them to do everything we can. As far as the bargaining units, there were memorandums of understanding, as the board knows, that were put in place for the teachers and the instructional assistants. And the other bargaining units, which includes the administrators, secretaries and technicians united, custodians, we're all in constant communication, with the bargaining unit groups. There are no issues. Everybody is rising to the occasion. So, we're very, very pleased with how things are going from that perspective. The progress we've made on making arrangements for all staff, with the exception of our building maintainer and custodians, they're working still in all our buildings. They're not working remotely, but everyone else is able to work remotely at this point. We've worked through most of the details, of any kind of software permissions that we had a grant, and that's going very, very well for us. And we just started remote work. Governor announced it Friday, and so we've been working remotely since Monday with all our groups, other than the teachers who've been, educating remotely since last week. The other thing that if employees, because we are managing through, remote work, there are times that employees, if they don't have an assignment from their supervisor, we've assigned them through Safe Schools training that they can do online. And so there's a long list of training that's been assigned, and we're exploring some other potential training opportunities, such as Google certification, some specialized programs for the instructional assistants. So, that as we get into next week, we'll be able to define those plans a little bit more specifically. But at this point, all remote employees are able to do their job effectively. To the extent we have staff working in the buildings, and we do at central office, we've been rotating some staff through. We're making sure that people are doing social distancing. Even in the same building, we are using this Google Hangouts Meet to make sure people are apart from each other, washing hands, sanitizing, reminding everybody don't touch your face, and staying at home when sick. So, so far, so good. So that's the update on HR staffing and remote. I can either pause or talk about facilities and maintenance next.
I'll be quick pause. Any questions on HR related items? Catherine? You're on mute if you're talking. If you're talking, you're still on mute. Oh, she says, never mind. We'll work it out. Sorry. Any other questions? Then why don't you continue on if Catherine jumps on after she will.
Will do. So facilities and maintenance, the building maintainers, are reporting daily. I mean, they've been great in shifting priorities and shifting work assignments. We pretty much have 3 building maintainers, working at DOT to help with the food prep. Right now, they're actually, doing the things that you would expect. They're moving boxes, they're loading the trucks, unloading the trucks, doing the things that, enable the staff to get those food items prepped for the day. We are suspending our daily cleaning services, which are provided by Performance Environmental, as of tomorrow. Obviously, we don't have any students in the building and very little staff, and we're making and keeping in close contact with our key vendors, including Performance. They stand ready to provide special services so that if we need to do a disinfection of a building, they stand ready to do that. But we are suspending service tomorrow. Our building maintainers And going forward, we'll clean the bathrooms and the common areas until we reopen the buildings. So that does result in cost savings for us. We've placed across all our campuses close signs. So if you drive up, you'll see, in the driveway, although it's not blocking the driveway so that, some staff or deliveries can still make it through, but we have put closed signs due to the pandemic at all our sites. And as Jeff mentioned, tomorrow morning at 7, we'll be closing down the fields as well. So, we'll be shoring up those signs. We're also reducing building energy usage. Obviously, less people in the buildings, so we're going to try and save some utility from there. And you'll see that there'll be minimal lighting at night in our buildings as well. Not to the point that it's unsafe, but again, just trying to reduce our energy consumption. And in order to try and keep things moving, I know Tim alluded to this earlier, but we do have some summer work that's planned, major projects. So we did hold the pre-proposal walkthroughs for the Cheshire High School ADA compliance project last week. I was pleased we saw 6 prospective bidders show up. The window replacement project, we had 7 prospective bidders. And then earlier this week, we had the walkthrough for the school security improvements, the man traps at our buildings. And we have 5 prospective bidders show up for that. And we have not forgotten about the solar energy consulting that we agreed to hire ECG Engineering for. I did hear back from ECG. I should be able to meet with the representative next week. And again, we're trying to keep those things going. I'm hopeful that we get good bids for the 3 projects, the 3 major projects that are out there, and hope we could start, because we know school's ending June 18th. We've told those bidders that they could start work as early as, I believe, June 22nd is the date. If we end school earlier, we'll try and start earlier. So fingers crossed on that one. That's the update on facilities.
Thanks. I think Tim has a comment or question for you, Vincent.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I know that the public health is, I said it before, and I appreciate you mentioning it. Public health is number one. And at the same time, we got to keep people employed. So if, whatever we can do, I appreciate that. Trying to make any of the projects move forward, stuff that we will end up doing anyway. Stuff is delayed, but I'd rather have people working or back to work as soon as possible. I think most people would like that. Maddie, I'm talking. So anyway, thank you, Vin, for doing that. And I know it's incredibly difficult right now, but whatever you can do, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Again, as we're getting more organized, I think next week, it's not that things are going to be back to normal, but we'll be able to focus our energies once we're out of the mode of just gearing up to be able to do the remote work. At least I'm hoping.
Thanks, Vincent. Catherine, you have a question?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Yes. Okay. Going back to the human resources, then it might be helpful if you could just explain what the general purpose of a memorandum of understanding is, so that people know what we're talking about. Not the details, but just sort of, why we might have needed to do that.
The best way to describe it is a memorandum of understanding takes the contract that we have with a bargaining unit, and in this case adds a dimension of how we operate. And I'll use the teachers as an example. Working and teaching remotely is not something that's outlined in the teacher contract. So having teachers teach from home has a whole different set of skills and requirements. So, some of the things that are outlined in that memorandum of agreement, talk about what the remote learning process will be. The compensation is not changing during this period. How they're reviewed was, a concern for the teacher, because it's difficult to review remote learning, although we are doing that to some extent. So it just outlines an amendment to the contract that's temporary in this case.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Vincent. I think have one more section? Operating budget or no?
I had technology support, just a couple of things I wanted to pepper because I know Marlene talked about the support. We did move from a swap out that was being done in our schools and at Humiston. We are now, if a student needs a device swapped out, we're prepping it here and actually using one of our drivers to deliver it to the student's home just so that, we minimize contact. The actual number of tickets that our technology assistants have opened and have closed has been pretty remarkable. The technology assistants are providing a lot of remote support to parents and our staff. We opened 80 tickets and we only have 2 that are open at this point. The others have been completed and the 2 that are open were from today. All the systems have been running well. Google's been a little slow off and on, but overall, doing well. And then last thing I want to mention is for our main office phone lines, because we don't have secretaries in the building, we're not answering calls live. However, we've updated all the greetings at our schools. Anyone that's calling the school will be able to leave a voicemail, and our secretaries are checking that voicemail box, regularly throughout the day. So voicemails are being collected and returned and responded to as needed during, regular work hours. So that's the tech update. I'm just going to move into payroll and accounting because that's pretty quick. Tomorrow is a payday. We did get payroll completed. The next payroll is April 10th, and work has begun on that. I mean, clearly, keeping payroll running is an important aspect of what we have to do. We do not outsource our payroll. It's done by internal staff. That's some of the staff who's been working at central office. The next payroll will be based on scheduled hours for all staff, with the exception of our daily substitutes. The daily substitutes were advised and given information on how to apply for unemployment. I think it's interesting to note that we've already received unemployment notices from the Department of Labor, which we need to complete. And my point is that the Department of Labor seems to be acting pretty swiftly on, completing their end of the process. So when we receive those, we have 7 days to respond, and we've not gotten a lot, but we have responded to those. And then the other important function that we have to keep running is accounts payable. So we do have 2 accounts payable clerks. They're working in office or remotely on rotating days so that, we can make sure we could process purchase orders and vendor payments as we need to. So that's the payroll and accounting. And I'll pause because the next and last section is operating budget.
Thanks, Vince. I think Adam had a question for you.
Thank you. Because the governor, I believe, had deemed construction as an essential service or profession, is it safe to assume that if you get good bids for the projects that you were talking about, that regardless of what happens with the remainder of the school year or whatever, that those projects will be able to go forward and be completed before the beginning of the next school year?
Absolutely. Again, I'm certainly hoping that by the time we get to when these construction projects would begin in June, that, things will be relatively back to normal. But, if there's one advantage to ending June 18th, it's that we can get the project started, before, July, get the abatements done in the schools and complete those projects. I mean, it will give us an opportunity to get a lot of work done, not only the major projects, but also some of the minor projects that, our building maintainers do, or, we hire contractors to complete besides these, 3 giant projects that we have.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Adam. I think Faith has a question for you.
Yeah, just real quick. I may have missed this. Tony, Vin, have we had any layoffs other than suspension of contract services?
We have not.
Okay. All right. And then just to relate it, are you going to discuss what's going on with medical insurance claims in the next section?
I don't have a medical claims update for tonight, but
I imagine they're going up, probably.
yeah, I don't think we'll see any of the, the claims until, well, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here a little bit. So it's March 26th. In the March month of March claims, which we won't receive till about the 10th of April, we may start to see
Okay.
some related claims, but it's probably going to take a couple of months before we start to see any claims specifically related to the pandemic.
Okay.
But,
thank you.
yeah, we'll cross our fingers for that one, Faith.
Hopefully,
Exactly.
hopefully we won't see any.
Exactly.
Um,
For their
uh,
sake.
Exactly. Thanks, Faith. Seeing there's no other questions, Vin, you can continue on.
Okay, so the operating budget, I really wanted to touch on just a couple of things. What I did, and I will email this to the board separately. I did take a look at, what would be the impact if we stayed shut down for, the month of April. What would the impact to the operating budget be? And, I'll start with the bottom line number that I came up with is, net cost reduction of about $478,000. Part of that comes from not paying substitutes because we don't need substitutes at this point in time. I think an important point to mention is, I estimate we'll save about $75,000 in sub costs. However, when any employee goes and collects unemployment, and assuming the substitutes are eligible, we are self-insured for our unemployment claims. So essentially, we're paying for unemployment. So even though you would save $75,000 on the substitute line, we would have to encumber and increase our unemployment line. And I figured it would be about a 50% unemployment claim payout. I mean, it could vary as much as high as up to 60%, but you save 75,000, but you're going to increase your unemployment claim line by 37,500. So, that's one of the things that, I'm not sure that we've talked about that much in recent years with the board, because we do have a line in our budget for unemployment, but it's not been very high because we've not had very many unemployment claims over the years. But it is self-insured, and it would come out of our budget if we did have high unemployment claims. So there's a downside to laying people off. It is a savings, but we're not in that mode. The other area that I estimated savings on, and this is a big question, but obviously working and teaching remotely, we're not running any of our buses. DATCO is our service provider. So I assume that we would have 1 month of contract savings. I assume that we would not have any of the field trip runs that we do normally during this time of year. And I assume that we would save about 50% of the cost of our runs. So that would be $172,000. Again, that's for 1 month. So, and there's several other mostly minuses, reductions, as I did this analysis. Again, I'll send it to the board. I just wanted to give the board a sense of what I think the savings would be for this month. The bus contract issue is a big one. And, it's my understanding that there's been legislation proposed that the bus contractors would be paid in full their 180 days. Even though they wouldn't be running 180 days. I don't know, if that legislation was truly proposed and how that would go. But I have been in touch with the CFO of DATCO a couple of times. We've agreed to keep our conversations going. So DECO's position at this point is, they're actually waiting to see what happens, if anything, with this legislation, but they're willing to certainly, discuss it and figure a solution that would work for everybody. So that's kind of the operating budget piece that I wanted to give. And I did want to also mention, I know that we had touched on it at our last meeting, but the opportunity or the possibility of taking advantage of the unexpended budget carryover of 2%, I think is something that would be helpful, to us as a school district. If we can carry over some of our unexpended funds, it certainly would help us manage through, the early part of the summer, because we do believe there will be related costs to provide compensatory special education services, if nothing else. But there may be other costs that I just can't identify yet that we would have to carry over. So I'll pause there.
Thanks, Vin. On the carrying over the operating budget, the 2%, I know there's a general statute around that. My recommendation is either Finance Committee, and probably most likely, or Policy, gearing toward Finance, take up that discussion sooner than later. Get our I's dotted, T's crossed, make sure we fully understand what that is. And I'd also like the town have an idea that this may be coming, and because we haven't talked to them yet, and understandably, they have their hands full themselves. Well, we have the school district, they also have the rest of the town, and I know right now, among the things that are still open is the 2020, 2021 budget process. It's kind of limbo right now. So by the time we get to that, hopefully we'll have some kind of general discussion with them and see what their thoughts are, because I'm sure they're going to ask us soon what we're thinking about our unexpended budget, what that might look like, which we talked about tonight. So, I'd ask Adam if he doesn't mind putting a Finance Committee meeting together, or just have a talk with you, Vin, and get some more detail you can share with the board. But I think we do need to talk about that soon. Before you start, Tim had a question. Tim, you still have something?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Tony. Vin, with regard to, you had mentioned, we get out of school on June 18th, knock on wood, and the construction season begins. My only request is that you keep in mind what I do think is a real possibility, which is we don't even go back to school this year. And then just think about, just have it in mind as you're, negotiating contracts to whatever extent you could, the possibility that, some school districts are in school until June 30th. Well, we've got this window of time that other school districts don't. You've got some free labor. You've got some free time for your people. Could we get a better rate or something like that? Just don't assume it would start after June 18th right now and sign a contract next week, because schools might be open. Who knows? Open for construction. That's all.
Yeah, understood. I keep telling people, I wish I had a crystal ball right now. I could make such good decisions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. All right, Vincent. Anything else?
That's it. Thank
Really?
you. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I'm being facetious. I know there's a lot to cover, and for the folks that may be watching, I don't know if Mike has any stats on our YouTube live. Be curious on that, but I can't again really do justice the amount of work that Vincent and team are doing behind the scenes. As I said earlier, even though the buildings may be technically closed, we're still running a fully functioning school district. I know he's dealt with a lot of MOUs and contract dialogue. So thank you, Vince. I know you put a lot of time into this. So I'm really impressed you kept it that short, considering what you've been dealing with the last 2 weeks. And I mean that as a compliment. Before we move on, I actually do have a few questions from the board. Then we're going to turn it over to public Q&A. But Adam has a question. And behind that, just Adam.
Hi, Vin. I know we were just talking about that 2% carryover. Just so it seems like this virtual meeting thing is working out really well where we may be able to conduct some of these subcommittee meetings. In your opinion, which, being I'm chair of both policy and finance, which meeting, which subcommittee do you think should be called at this time? Thank you.
I think it's policy, because right now the board doesn't have a policy around the unexpended funds carryover. It's really not so much a finance question at this point, but if we take it up a policy, there's plenty of sample policies from other school districts that I was able to find online. The statute's pretty straightforward. And the big thing really is gaining consensus of the board and making a request to the fiscal authority. The town council does have to approve the carryover. So let's go with policy.
Okay, and so then I'll contact with CABE and get some guidance on that to see if they have any draft policies there. Thank you.
Thanks. I thought we had more questions, but actually it was nothing from Mike Salamini, who, by the way, want to thank Mike for putting this whole live stream together for us and working through all the technical back end. And he's been with us so far tonight. So thank you, Mike. But Mike's just indicated, you maybe saw a message pop up that we have 250 people watching us live. I think it's the most we've had in a board meeting almost ever. So good job, Mike, for getting us up and running. Vincent, are there any more updates that you have or any more questions from the board before we turn over to public commentary?
No, I do not. And thank you for your indulgence and patience and all the assistance that you've provided as a board. It truly is appreciated and helped us, get through at least the first part of this tough period. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, we're not over, but I think there's some great momentum on this. So I thank you again for all your work and your staff, Vincent. We're gonna go on to. I'm just watching the comments here, make sure there's no more questions. We're gonna go on to public question and answers. So, Mr. Solomon, I know you've been watching the email account. Do we have any? It sounds like we do. Just shaking your head.
Yeah, we do. And I really appreciate people last Monday and again throughout tonight's broadcast sending in questions. I think it's interesting as I watch some board members say, I have a question, and then they kind of retract it as it gets answered potentially. There's some of that going on tonight via email as well. We had a parent ask about special needs progress, and I know Marlene addressed that. One of the typical terms we look at, or we know in education that's often used at the end of summer is regression recoupment. And so you look at to what degree did a child regress, what sort of supports are they going to need to, recover or recoup what they've lost. And so that is going to occur across our district for all students when we return, but certainly our special needs population. Right now, we're in close contact through their providers, through the special education teacher or case manager is in touch with those parents. I know Ms. Hussey has sent out several letters to parents. I just read another one to go out tomorrow. So we are, like pretty much everything, we're trying to maintain close communication, and that's the best way to make sure if you have a concern about your child, or you have a question about anything, please reach out to us. You can always use that CPSCovid19 email address. If you're just not sure who to write to, those come directly to me and Carol Jasinski in my office, and we get that stuff routed to the right place. One question we had is, why aren't high school teachers streaming videos in real time? And I think Tim addressed it to a certain degree, where we have a lot of different things going on for our staff during the day. Some are streaming in real time, and there's a little bit of a testing process that we have going on. How is that working? Is that working for our students, those that are getting streamed in real time? How is it not? So we're in the process of kind of shaking that out, and we're going to adapt more as to meet the needs of our students. So we are definitely looking at streaming in real time. We have a number of teachers doing that at this point. Will end of year course assessments be modified? And I know Marlene talked about our state assessments, the Smarter Balance, the SAT, those assessments have been waived. Science for this year. The end of course assessments, we are definitely going to be considerate of what our students have experienced. So I know that we'll be flexible depending on, when we come back. Again, we'll have to assess, where are our students, what do they need? And I'm more inclined to think that our students would be better served by providing more instruction than more assessment at the end of the year if we're back in session. Tony, you talked about, I don't want to sound like we're bragging here or anything, but we did get a very early jump on this, and we have a number of folks who have recognized that fact. And not just the fact that we got an early jump on this from technology and the learning toolkits in grades K through 3, our scheduling, our communications, and the fact that Marlene and Kevin Hanlon and our curriculum team, we aspired to really support students, doing some review initially and then moving forward in our regular curriculum. So I know some other districts have kind of been in a position where they're providing, all right, well, maybe this will just kind of get you through today. And I don't want to disparage anybody with the idea of busy work, but we've really tried to focus on flowing with our curriculum. And just the other day, we were asked by District Administration Magazine, which is a national publication. They interviewed us about what are we doing so that they can kind of set a template nationally too. So other people have taken notice about the work that's being done in our school system. Will remote learning satisfy Connecticut State Department of Education requirements for grade promotion was another question that we had, and absolutely is the answer to that question. The CSDE, the Connecticut State Department of Ed, has been very clear with us about providing the appropriate supports so that our students may be promoted. And, like I said, our work is very closely aligned to the curriculum. So I have even less of a question than perhaps, in some places where that may not be the case. I do, again, want to just give a shout out to our bargaining unit. They recognize their leadership, Lori Delcor, and also the teaching leadership with John Redford. Those guys immediately recognized what our priorities were to educate our students first. Like I said earlier, that's our primary focus. How are we going to take this centuries-old institution of brick and mortar learning and transform ourselves into a remote learning school system? And Lori was very patient as we worked through that process with the IAs, and right to the point where I think we were signing the MOU last week. She and Marianne Kish, another member of the leadership team and the IAs, were there helping serve lunch. So I mean, they were very invested and very involved, and I really appreciate their patience as we focused initially on providing direct instruction, then food and feeding all these kids, and they were right there helping out. So thank you to Lori and her team with the IAs. And I know somebody already gave a shout out, Tony. I appreciate you acknowledging Mike Salamini, but that man is always there for us. He, always there to film whatever. He's saved my butt more than once or twice with an oddball cord or whatever you needed from technology. So he spends a lot of time prepping for this so that we can have 250 viewers. And I really do appreciate the effort Mike puts forth. And I know everybody on the board does too. So thanks a lot. And that was pretty much it that we had for questions.
Thanks, Jeff. Not surprised we didn't get a lot of questions tonight because I think all the board members have been receiving a lot of questions, as have you, Jeff. I know a lot of coming in through our website for the online learning. So it's nice to see that the constant flow of information coming through. And just a couple more shout outs. I think I forwarded to the board, I definitely forwarded to you, Jeff. I've received a few emails from parents thanking the teachers, specific teachers, in fact. So it's nice to see the public's engaged and parents are engaged. And I'm not sure if we get more questions while trying to stress this out, but before we go to a motion for adjourn, is there any other comments or questions from the board members before we adjourn for this evening? Everyone's tired as well, huh? I'll echo what? Oh, Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff, I had mentioned calling a personnel meeting this weekend, as soon as this weekend. Are you aware of any legal drawbacks or anything to doing that? I mean, could we meet on, assuming we're the three of us, the four of us are available, and Mike, hopefully too, Mike Salamini, the four being the three personnel committee members, and you, Jeff. Is there anything holding that back, making that illegal or difficult or anything?
I know that everything has been relaxed with the current circumstances. So my inclination would be no, but I will double check that.
Okay.
We'll check that first thing tomorrow, but like I said, my inclination is that that's not going to be a problem.
Okay, so I'll probably look for something for Saturday or Sunday, which would still be, 24 hours notice anyway. So it wouldn't necessarily be an emergency meeting or anything like that, just a rushed meeting. All right, thank you.
Tim, I appreciate you bringing this up. It's something that we really didn't have to think about until now. Really, the topic is succession planning. And again, I'm watching Jeff on the screen. It was pretty healthy to me. So, for
I haven't heard that in a while.
So, so far the staff looks tired, but hopefully Jeff is away. Number 2 is away. Number 3, it'd be good for us to get a refresh on that. I've never had to deal with it. I don't think any veteran board member had to deal with that in the past. So kudos to you for bringing that up. And I don't envision that being a long meeting, but we'll plan it out. So thank you, Tim, on that. Let's see, any other comments from board members?
I did get one other question, if I could, and I bring it up. The question was about supporting primary age students with our IAs, and we have been working the last couple of days to try and deploy some of those IAs so that we can get more support in the early primary grades as well, to answer questions and support those students too.
Thank you. Any other board members? Any other comments before we go? Ann, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say I've just gotten a notification by somebody who has said that their teens are well rested these days. And this brings us to the school start times issue that I think we need to bring up again when things begin to settle down. It might be really interesting to see what happens in this climate where our teenage students aren't getting out of bed and getting on a bus and trying to get to school by 7:30. Maybe they're actually doing a better job at their studies when they don't have to get up and out of bed until 8 o'clock. So we might revisit that in light of some opportunities that might come out of this whole, what can only be described as a fiasco right now.
It sure is. Thank you, Ann. We'll definitely keep that on the forefront. Any other members that want to come out? Awesome. Oh, never mind. So that's about it. For those that have been watching, thank you on behalf of the board, administration, CPS. I want to appreciate your patience. It's been almost a 2-hour meeting. Hopefully highly informational. I know a lot of stuff's been covered. If you did have a question, you couldn't get it in, or you think of something after this meeting, you can still email that email address. We'll still respond to it. You can always reach any board member. You can reach the superintendent, his team. So please keep the information flowing. The more communication we have, the better this is going to be for everyone involved. So That being said, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sure.
Andrew beat you to the buzzer, so Andrew seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jeff and team. And again, appreciate your time on this and sticking out. The meeting is adjourned. If I had a virtual gavel, I would actually hit it right now. So